On this week's episode, we're going to discuss some cool new RISC-V hardware that you can check out. Welcome to Destination Linux, where we discuss the latest news, hot topics, gaming, mobile, and all things open source in Linux. My name is Jill.
My name is Ryan.
And I'm Michael.
Also this week, we're going to discuss how the company Sonos is not doing well, but open sourcing their software could keep those speakers out of the landfill. And there are some great new features coming to mobile with Android 15. Plus, we got some Linux gaming and our software spotlight and more. Now let's get the show on the road toward Destination Linux.
Our feedback this week comes from Ross. They have this to say: I'm just listening to the show for the first time in a long time. I'm glad you fixed your mistakes.
Yes,
but obviously,
welcome back, but also how dare you?
How dare you? Yeah, get your scheduling together, Ross. Let's fix this problem. There's a lot of tools out there that we talk about on the show. You go back and listen about how to organize your time better so you can never miss an episode again. So definitely go back and listen to those. Continue to say, and just in a long time, you just said you can't install Ubuntu from Microsoft App Store, but you can. And then they provided a Microsoft link, which, first of all, how dare you? We don't open Microsoft
again.
Probably
how dare you?
Scam. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, you can install and run GUI apps. I often find with Linux podcasts that their knowledge of Windows technology is out of date and sometimes results in Windows bashing. I'm not a Windows fanboy necessarily, but I am a fan of getting the facts right. Well, I'm not. So I hate getting the facts right. In fact, that is the last thing I want to do, in fact, is get facts right. So, Mike,
are you being factual right now?
I'm being very factual. Facts
no
on
printer?
This show don't belong, sir. No, we make up the stories we want. Linux has an 89% market share. That's a fact on this show, and you just have to deal with it. That's how we look at things. Michael,
that's a weird way to take this feedback.
I'm kidding, Ross, of course. I appreciate you sending that in, but on the other side, I had Michael, who is our investigator. We pay him as a detective on this show. He's practically the Batman, the old Batman from the comics that did the detective work.
Oh, yeah.
And we had him go back and listen to that show. So, Batman, what did you find?
I found some very interesting information. First of all, what I found is that we did get our facts right. So not really totally sure what the feedback is about.
I hate that.
But it's about saying that we didn't actually say you couldn't download it from the App Store. We were saying that it's not the only thing you have to do to download it from the App Store. But in fact, you said you could get Ubuntu and Arch to get it from the store, and you can, but you also have to get WSL installed first and enabled before you do that, which is we were just talking about the specifics of saying you need to do a bunch of steps ahead of time before you can get this set up, which in some ways is good because your mean is not average users are going to be running into this sort of thing, but also it means that there is more work to be done. But also we said that you're not getting a full Ubuntu, you're getting a terminal environment, which is exactly what you get. And that's what even Canonical says on their website when they talk about it. So I'm not really totally sure what we didn't get the facts right about. So feel free to send another email with actual facts that we messed up instead of the things that we didn't.
Yeah, because we like those. That's something we'll frame. If we get the facts wrong, we'll frame it and be very proud of that. Whereas this case, we didn't get the facts wrong, and we're upset on ourselves. We only have ourselves to blame for messing up.
We're upset with ourselves for being right?
Right. We don't deal with facts in this show,
I see.
If I dealt with facts in this show, it would stop me from making up stories that make fun of you the entire show.
And
then where would the chemistry be?
That's a good point.
The whole show would go.
There would be no banter if you didn't make up stuff about me, which happens every week.
Well, I don't make it up. I exaggerate it to the extreme. Is that really making up, or is that? It's kind of.
I mean, when you start making up completely random things that have nothing to do with anything at all,
like you have weak thumbs.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the weak thumb thing. What does that even mean? Where did that come from? I actually do know where it came from. I doubt you'd remember, but It's
it's funny, and the audience ran with it. But the thing is, I remember with the GUI apps, that we were talking about that the Windows subsystem, when we had that person on, the goal was this seamless integration. And when we had that conversation, although I didn't go listen to it because I'm not Batman, I'm just Robin. I just sit in the background, wait for Batman to tell me what to do. So
Exactly.
as Robin, I remember specifically listening with that episode and talked about the fact that we had that person on. They talked about seamless integration, and seamless to me means that you wouldn't know you're running Linux. And in that case, that would have been bad. Yes, you can run GUI apps in Windows, like you could install GIMP or other things, but you have to go through the terminal to install it, and then once you install it, then you can go and
even just
launch it.
Just getting WSL installed, you have to install it through PowerShell. So it's not something
a non-technical user
right. They would never even know what PowerShell is. And I think that you have to use Windows Terminal to do it, or the command prompt. So it's possible that people would accidentally put in the command prompt, but it's very unlikely still, because you still have to find out what commands that you need to put in there. So the odds of someone doing it accidentally or not, just going to the store and downloading it directly from the store and that's all they do, that's just not how it works. So
yeah,
I feel like the facts are correct, and I'm proud of us, even though Ryan is disappointed.
Yeah. I remember teaching this to my students because I had showed them how to burn an ISO on a flash drive and run Linux that way, or do it in the virtual machine. And several of them had came up to me, how do we install Linux and WSL? And that was my learning with my journey.
Yeah.
With Windows installing it. And so, I showed them how to go to PowerShell and what commands to use and and they're like, and they were all like, oh, it's just much easier to run from a flash drive. I go, yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and they've made it easier. I mean,
Yeah,
to Ross's point,
They have.
it's much easier than it was when WSL first came out. But
yeah.
Look, Ross, here's the situation. Because you didn't get your facts right about us getting our facts right, I'm going to TJ Maxx this week. Not Ross.
Not Ross.
Clothing. Anyone?
Ross
No?
for less?
Anyone? All right. If you want to send in
Ross dress for less. What a ridiculous reference. I had no idea what you're talking about.
But once you got it was good.
I applaud you for how terrible that joke was. It's so good. It's so good because it's so bad. I mean, I feel like you've learned from me with those dad jokes.
I mean,
yeah.
The student has become the master.
Michael, you rubbed off on Ryan big time.
That's scary. That's really scary.
Oh,
if you want us to riff off your emails, if you want to tell us how we got our facts wrong, and we would love to hear from you, go to destinationlinux.net/comments or destinationlinux.net/forum and send them in. By the way, all this in good jest. Ross, I do appreciate you sending that email in. I appreciate all the emails. Sometimes, by the way, we do get our facts wrong. Like it happens. So we appreciate
it's very rare,
correct that.
But it does. It can happen because there is this thing that we're not AI, we're humans, so it's possible. But
AI is always wrong. So
exactly, pretty much always.
We hallucinate sometimes too.
But that's only after lots of drinking. But
true.
But what I'm saying is that we're not AI. We are humans. We do make mistakes. And if you find a problem that we do on the show, feel free to let us know. We'll try to make corrections and all that sort of stuff. It's very unlikely you'll find any problems with what we say. But it's...
And I don't know about the fact that we would fix it. We'd mention it and we made a mistake, but we're going to...
we can't go back in time and fix it, but we can address it is all I'm saying.
Well, if I make a mistake, I want to double down on it. Like, I don't want to let them win. I want to be like, no. And then find some weird, obscure argument to prove that somehow I'm right, but you've got to take 16 jumps in another direction.
I mean, that is
I'm
the
not
true
letting
nerd way.
The audience win. There's no way. Unless you're one of my Space Hay friends. If you join me on spacehay.com, I will let you win an argument. I have 11
I feel like
friends
you set
there
that
now.
that whole thing up just to promote your Space Hay.
Shut up, Michael. Come join me on Space Hay. It's my space.
Oh my goodness.
All right. You know what I want to check out I want to take Space Hay and I want to experience it on a tablet, but not just any tablet. It's got to be an open source RISC-V tablet.
Oh,
Michael or Jill, is there anything out there where I could do this on?
There sure is. RISC-V is an open source instruction set architecture that is still in the early stages of development as far as mainstream use goes, but things are progressing very quickly.
True.
Deep Computing, which is a company based in Hong Kong and formed in 2022, already has several RISC-V laptops available, but recently they announced a cool new tablet to check out. It's
Nice.
called the DC Roma RISC-V Pad 2. It comes equipped with SpaceMint K1 8-core RISC-V CPU, and it runs Ubuntu.
Nice.
Nice.
That's where I can get my Space Hay on. Can have a little
Yes.
tablet with RISC-V and have some Space Hay action. This is really
Exactly.
cool, though. Like, I love seeing that we're getting new hardware with RISC-V architecture on it. And then they also mentioned that they have the AI Fusion computing engine, which has up to 2 tops at int.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh,
pretty
2
awesome.
tops at int is that's a lot of int tops at.
You want to explain what that might be, Michael?
I do want to explain what that means. So that's 2 tops or Terra operations that are at int. No, I'm out.
Okay.
I'm out. What is this?
Okay.
All right. So,
It's not an ent as in Lord of the Rings. It's an INT.
yeah, there you go. So it's tera operations per second, or then trillion operations per second. So now you got the 2 trillion operations a second. That makes sense. And it's basically saying this is the maximum number of arithmetic operations that it can do. So arithmetic being, Michael, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all those things you learned.
I already
in grade-
said I was
you
out, so whatever.
didn't go to grade school. It's how many of those?
Okay,
it can
first of
perform
all, I
per
did go to
second?
grade school. I do know multiplication. You know, I'm up.
But
I'm
not
up in a
division,
pre-
right? Because that's the only one you
I
mentioned
mean-
was multiplication.
I mean, why would you go with division? You don't want to. You don't want to divide things. You want. I'm a person who adds things together. I'm a person who is a. What is that? What is that? I can't remember that phrase, but it's like I pull things together. I don't divide things. You know, I'm not
Nice.
divisive.
That would be hilarious to tell that to a teacher. Like, I'm not learning division because I'm a multiplier.
I'm a multiplier. All I do is multiply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I did know what Terra tops was just because of the teraflops, and then everything else about that made no sense. Although I also didn't understand the int things. I haven't seen that movie.
2 trillion operations a second is sounds like it's a pretty powerful little processor. And it's very significant.
Trillion.
But if you compare it to its competitors, and when we're talking about competitors here, keep in mind this isn't a tablet. So this is not saying this isn't good. It's very good what they have here. But like if you're comparing it to like an Intel Core Ultra, you're at 11.5. If you're at AMD Ryzen, you're at 16. Apple M3 at 18. Apple M4 at 38 tops at int. So Snapdragon X series at 45. And then AMD 300 series at 50 tops at int. So you've got things that are very... they multiply. You can multiply
top at int a lot.
Those tops at int a lot. They multiply the 2 tops at int. But still, 2 trillion operations a second is nothing to sneeze at, Michael. Nothing to sneeze at.
Nothing to sneeze at, especially at a tablet, especially at a RISC-V, not brand new, but like a fairly early stages, architecture. Making this possible is still, it's very cool.
I love that it runs Ubuntu, and in the pictures, it looks really good. It looks really solid. The laptops and tablets, though, keep in mind, are for developers and tinkerers. So if you're looking for a daily driver, this is not it, but it's still exciting because what we're seeing is as most of this hardware gets built for the developers and the hackers out there, they're going to be doing things like putting Ubuntu on it, making sure the apps run on it, getting the web working, email working, all the sound, all of this stuff. And then by the time it gets ready for your prosumers like us, then we get to play with it, put Space Hay on it, because that's all I'm going to do on it. I'm just going to sit on Space Hay and wait for someone to
What else could you do, really?
One of my 11 friends to mess with me on Space Hay.
Well, I think it's really cool that it runs Ubuntu Desktop 24.04 LTS, and it has a 1920 by 1200 resolution IPS display. And it also has a 2 megapixel front-facing camera and a 5 megapixel back-facing camera. and a headphone connector. Woohoo!
Whoa.
Nice.
Look at that.
So in this particular case, I would like to point out that a 1080p type of the screen on a small tablet that is based on the RISC-V architecture because it's early stages, that is completely acceptable.
For developers.
Totally. Yeah, it's for developers. Yeah, and something really interesting that Deep Computing actually states on their website, the Pad 2's touch interface also makes it easy to test app development and interact directly on the device, cutting out the need for cross-platform transfers. This approach speeds up testing, reduces development time, and ensures your mobile applications are accurate and consistent. And of course, you can connect an external keyboard as well, which is especially useful when you're doing development in the terminal.
On a tablet, nonetheless. Imagine trying to type those commands. Switch keyboard, %.
What kind of external keyboard? Like a Bluetooth keyboard, or like, can you do like
Bluetooth.
a mechanical keyboard?
Bluetooth.
That'd be cool.
It's Bluetooth. Okay. Yeah.
I guess you could still do a Bluetooth mechanical. Yeah.
You might be able to do you might be able to plug a keyboard into the USB-C. Some of them allow you to. I don't know.
They didn't. Cool. They didn't actually specify, which was interesting.
The keyboard in their picture was Bluetooth. It was wireless.
Yeah,
but you might be able to.
And you can pre-order the DC Roma RISC-V Pad 2 starting from only $149 on the Deep Computing website, but it is only available in limited quantities. So $149. And the 149 version comes with 4 gigs of RAM and a 64 gigabyte eMMC drive. And for $299, you can get it with 16 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of eMMC drive. So you have plenty of options there, and it's rare that you get development devices for that cheap.
Oh yeah. Also, they're not like terrible specs or anything. 16 gigs of RAM is I was never expecting that to be possible on there.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, a brand new developer style prototype ISC kind of thing. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you mentioned that with the tablet, could you plug something in, like a keyboard or mouse, to start using it? And what's really interesting is I have a story to tell about hacking a bike, a Peloton. So,
for those people know, those are not actual bikes. That's a fitness bike that you sit in your own home and go nowhere.
So I bought a used Peloton, and whatever it's called, and it has the big video screen and all of that. And everything about the Peloton is it's just an exercise bike with a giant, really nice monitor and speakers. And then you can access live classes and things and take these classes and all of that. Well, with all of my gym memberships, I just don't need the Peloton anymore. So I wanted to sell it. So I sat there and I did the restart, because everything was working great. So I refreshed it to remove all of my membership stuff to sell it to somebody. And of course, the hour before they come is when I decide to do the refresh and restart, because this should work without problem, right? And all of a sudden it locks up on the screen and it cannot get past the screen. The touch panel stops working altogether. You can't click next. You can't do anything. It's just on the screen. So call Peloton, spend like an hour and a half on. They're like, look, your screen's bad. It's going to have to be replaced. And I'm like, no, this has got to be a firmware problem because it's stuck on this update thing. But if I do the test, there's a test for the touchscreen. It works perfectly. So you guys bricked this thing with an update that you did with that screen does not work because the touchscreen is perfectly functional. And so like, no, it's going to be like $600 for a new screen. We're going to send a tech out, blah, 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 blah. I went to the gym and I was all mad. And then I remembered it has a USB-C port. What if I plugged a mouse into it and clicked that button? And could I get past that screen? And sure enough, I plug a mouse in, I move it over, click the button, get past the screen, all past that screen, everything works perfectly again.
Wow.
And so
you elite hacksaw.
Elite hacksaw, yes.
You hacked it by plugging in a mouse.
By plugging in a mouse. And so you never know what you can plug a mouse into to fix something out there. So your thought of like, hey, can you plug a keyboard in, whatever? I just wanted to share that story in case anyone has a Peloton or comes across that.
That is good to know.
Yeah.
Also, they could apply that to a lot of stuff. I'm sure there's some like some random appliance that has the same kind of thing, like a fridge that doesn't let you do it. And you're like, just plug in a mouse. It's fine.
And there you go. I'm good.
A
And I thought
toaster.
maybe I'll sell it if the touchscreen doesn't work, as just use the mouse to click on the class you want and move on. But this is the point here, Michael, is that you've got this super expensive Peloton, this $1,000 bike. I didn't pay that for it because I got it used, but this $1,000 bike that becomes a brick if they do something on the software side on their end. You can't do anything else with this device.
Yeah.
And there are other devices just like it.
Speaking of which, let's talk about one that is having a similar sort of issue. Now, everyone wants to be the next Apple, whether that is, having trillions of dollars, whether that's having a brand that people love and stand in a line for hours to get their new products, which doesn't happen anymore, but used to. Or maybe they just want to have their own ecosystem of closed devices, forcing everyone to only use their stuff and control the experience and make sure that they control the upgrades, or they're only buying their products because you can't get out of it not because it's so good, but because, well, you're stuck, basically, is the idea. Sonos is a company who makes relatively high-end consumer audio equipment for the home user. Now, perhaps it's best well known for bringing wireless surround sound to the forefront of consumers. So if you invested in Sonos, you likely spent thousands of dollars buying into their equipment for your speaker bar, for example, or your subwoofer, or even the speakers themselves throughout your home. Now, the problem here is everything is controlled by Sonos, and the company isn't doing so great. So, speaking of Sonos and it not doing so great and it costing a lot of money, hey, Ryan, what kind of setup system do you have for your audio system in your home?
Look what I got the other day, Michael. It's a bat signal. And it's
that is
also
cool.
A popcorn bucket. So
neat.
That's very cool. I think people would love to see it displayed later on after you answer the question about what you use in your system for your sound.
I bought into the Sonos crap, and now I'm stuck with it. Like, I knew better too. I knew better. Like, I bought their sound bar, I got their wireless speakers, and I buy everything used. Like, I'm a big eBay person, so I don't pay the prices for it, but I have their whole ecosystem. Like, I know where this whole thing's going because I've experienced it all with Sonos. Like, they have new speakers out and they're not compatible with the older generation bridges, which is really stupid. So they basically are saying, hey, yeah, you spent thousands of dollars on sound bars and speakers and all this stuff from our last generation, but this new generation, we're not going to make it backwards compatible. So if you try to add one of our new speakers, well, you need a new hub and all this stuff. It's really, that company, talk about like dominating a market for like a prosumer, like, because there's way better speakers out there, right? But they did a very good job of marketing themselves as a really good speaker that was completely wireless.
Really high end stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're more high end than the typical sound bar you may get at a Walmart or something like that. But they're still like, I mean, audio equipment's one of those things that you could spend $100,000 a speaker on. So I mean, they're way below that, but they're definitely on the higher end of stuff, and they sound good. And when you do finally get them set up, first of all, their setup process has always been hot garbage. Like, it's always been bad. But once you get them set up, it works really well and it's very reliable once the thing finally links up and gets set up.
Quick note, Sonos. The reason people like Apple is because it's easy to set up things and easy to do things. Not that. And also, to credit to Apple, which, I mean, as much as you can give them, at least when they make new products, most of the time their stuff still works. Although the iPhone 15 did introduce the whole USB-C lightning issue, but that's a thing that happens every once in a while. It doesn't. And the last time they did something like that was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. Like, they still have compatibility available to you, even though they make some of their computers like not be able to update. They give you I think 10 years before that happens. So if Sonos does that in one generation, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's not great. I don't know. I think it's one generation, but it was a lot of years in between the generation, but still, like, I think they lost a lot of people's faith in them with doing that. And then they also had this really dumb thing to like reset one. You have to hold this top touch button, then hold this bottom button, and then unplug it and replug it in, and that's your reset. Like, don't you miss the days when you just had a little pin you would push in the back and it would reset something? They had stupid
most
stuff
products
like
are still
that.
doing that because that makes sense. Doing this weird
magic trick.
How are you supposed to do it with one person? Like you're supposed to hold this
very
one
difficult. You gotta like hold a couple, and then you use your toes and you grab it with the plug with your foot, and you unplug it, and then you plug it back in with your foot. If you're just one person, I'm guessing.
If you are that, if you have that much dexterity, I applaud you.
I do that. I just had my wife. But the point is, like, not a lot of the stuff was really well thought out. Although the speaker design sounds really good, so I'm not surprised on one side that the company is having some problems. Their stock price, of course, is crashing, which is
they also did some layoffs.
Layoffs is definitely a sign companies in very troubled waters, and they have really bad publicity around these new speakers. So about forcing upgrades, which isn't helping on top of all that, as well as they launched a new app. And so if you think that whole process I described to you about resetting a Sonos is bad, try using their hot garbage app because it's bad. Like, because I have Sonos set up in a bedroom and some of their speakers, and because I like to listen to music and jam while I'm studying and stuff in the bedroom, and I have the home theater set up in the living room. And so sometimes I want to control the home theater and raise and lower the volume through the app, and sometimes I want to go to the bedroom one and do that. The problem is there's no easy way to this day, and I've had this thing for, I don't know, over a year. I still have no idea how I'm supposed to navigate between the bedroom speakers and the living room. I click around until eventually the living room thing pops up.
My.
That's how bad their interface is. Like,
but
it's
that's
so bad.
crazy. That's crazy. But as we were deciding to researching to talk about this topic, I saw an article that was just like it blew me away with the level of incompetence that this would have to have in order for this to happen. Because you're talking about the app is so terrible, but it was also already terrible, right? It was beforehand. It was terrible. Now it's worse and everyone hates it. First of all, how did it get through Q&A and actually get released to people? And if everyone hates it, secondly, it's so bad. The CEO apologized for it being terrible and said there is no way to fix it. They cannot roll it back.
They can't roll it back.
They've done so much changes on their stuff and the cloud and all this stuff. Like, how do you do all of this stuff and never test the app to be functional? It sounds like an article from The Onion. That's how ridiculous this is.
This is the problem when suits that get these fancy degrees from these fancy colleges come in and take over a business, instead of situations like Lisa Sue, where you got bona fide engineers that run a company that actually know what they're doing. Because the suits are all like, let's cut costs. We don't need that many software developers. Hey, let's get rid of the UX designers. That costs a lot of money. We'll use AI to make it. And they make all these stupid decisions that they learn from their stupid professors in their stupid college, and they ruin these companies. And this is a perfect example of that happening. Why are we covering this on Destination Linux?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
Oh, it's so important.
It is important.
Yeah.
But why, Jill?
Because if we open source this software, we can keep all those beautiful speakers out of the landfill.
Yeah. If these people would open source this stuff from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't have this nonsense. But I also think there's an important lesson here, one that I knew better. Ross, you're going to love this because I made a mistake here. I bought into an ecosystem that there's no escape from. And so you have no other alternative. If Sonos goes down, right? If their stock goes to zero and the company closes down, what I have is $1,000 worth of bricks, of really pretty bricks that nothing else can interface with, unless one of the beautiful hackers out there from the Linux community figure out a way to like side interface with it or whatever. But you can't count on that. But y'all would do that
Reverse
for me, right?
engineering is
You would?
amazing. Like it's amazing, but also you can't rely on that because I mean,
No.
maybe at some point
Mm.
you can, like a couple years later, you can start going back because it'll probably take that much time to reverse engineer something like this.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I want a system that interfaces with my Home Assistant and that I can control from my Home Assistant, and I don't need to utilize any proprietary software on, especially when you're spending this kind of money. If it was like $100 full speaker system or whatever, and it turns into a brick, it's like, But I mean, not the $100 is in, but you know, after a couple years of using it, I've gotten my money's worth. Whereas in this case, it's just very expensive audio equipment. This is also why I use Eufy as my security cameras, because you can interface with their app or you can integrate it into Home Assistant, and it has local storage, not cloud. I don't have to use any cloud storage. I don't want anybody IPing in and all that stuff. It's for me. So that's why I like Eufy. I have a video on it on my channel if you want to check it out. It's better than Ring and all that other crap that's a privacy nightmare. But my point is, yes, open source, Jill, 100% would have made this better. But, you know, companies, especially the suits, can't figure that stuff out. But just not buying this stuff to begin with is a really good lesson. And I knew
That's
better.
a good lesson.
I freaking knew better, you know?
Well, there is a very cool thing happening. There is they're trying to develop an open source standard for the professional audio world, whether it be speakers, and even actually that includes interfaces, like audio interfaces for podcasting.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the article talks about how it's kind of been getting slow at launching, but they're starting to work on an open source standard for all those lovely speakers, Sonos speakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we get some open source software out there we can use for surround sound and the wireless. I love the wireless. That's the biggest thing. I don't want to run wires. So that's what got me into the whole Sonos. They did the wireless thing effortlessly without the lag and everything else that a lot of those wireless ones that were out at the time, talking about when Sonos was first introduced, it was just very hard to calculate lag between speakers, and Sonos just did all that through the software. So they had the ability to have really good engineers at one point, but they seem to have lost their way, kick the suit out, put an engineer in charge, and I bet you the whole company turns around. That's what I'm guessing. All right. So the big news this week, Michael, is that the iPhone launched. But in this show, we're not going to talk about the iPhone because that's too new. It's too fresh. We want to talk about Android 15 out there that also just
exactly.
Recently. So, I remember when, and we've talked about this on the show, when Android would release a new Candy named version of their operating system, that it was a
long time ago.
It was worthy of taking a day of PTO off. Like, that's how much of a nerd I was. I would take a day of PTO to play with the OS and see all the new features because it was so exciting and all of that. And the moment they got rid of naming in the public their operating system versions, named after Candy, I feel like that's when all the quality went away too, because everyone loves Candy.
They still name it, but it's all code name stuff.
It's all internal to the company.
Internal.
Like 15 is vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. And they don't make those
very, very sad, pathetic name for, like, not that it's bad. It's just you couldn't come up with something better than, like, it's they're on the letter V. I get it. But vanilla ice cream, is there nothing else you could have named it? Like, there's literally nothing else named with a V. It just it feels like just like the laziest thing you could pick is some kind of, like, because you already did ice cream. That was what the I was.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like, you know what? Vanilla ice cream, because we're so good at this.
And it's sad that we don't get those cool statues that you get to see in front of the Google campus.
Yeah, that was cool with,
really
like, the
fun
cupcake and the
donut.
I was ice cream sandwich. I remember that.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually kind of fun, but this is, come on.
I looked up candy that starts with a V. There's Violet Mints, Volcano, Van Houten's, Valentine Heart, hearts. That
Valentine
would
heart
have been
would
a cute
work.
one.
Yeah.
Or Valo Milk is a candy cup similar to Reese's peanut butter cup. However, instead of peanut butter filling, it's made of marshmallow. That's what's up. I could
That sounds interesting.
So, Valo
Yeah.
Milk. They could have named it that. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but
I
still.
probably need to have, but that's probably an issue. I think the problem is that they picked candy or dessert to be the thing, and then they realized that the majority of most candies are brand names that they have to get like licensing deals to use.
like Kit Kat. You remember that?
Yeah, because they had to get a deal with that one.
Yeah.
But that's a side note. But I do. It's funny you bring that up because like I remember like the big days of like the Eclair release and you know downloading it and playing with it.
Jelly bean.
Yeah, Jelly Bean. Not being able to use Honeycomb. That was super annoying.
Yeah.
Because that was the tablet only version.
That was the tablet only version, which I had.
Yeah.
Okay, Jill. Of course you do, Jill. Of course you do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's some exciting things about vanilla ice cream. Number one, it's plain. You know,
it's plain. It's very vanilla is very tasty. I think vanilla ice cream does not get the
flavor.
There you go. Vanilla ice cream does not get enough respect, and it is a travesty. It is very delicious. It is the perfect thing to be attached to anything else, like, you know, a la mode. Well, they always use vanilla. So think about it. It's so flexible. Why are we talking about this? I don't know. Sorry.
I don't know. So vanilla ice cream, Android 15. Some of the cool features that stood out to me is partial screen sharing. So you can just choose to share one app at a time like you do on your desktop, which I think is pretty brilliant, right? Satellite connectivity features. So for the areas where you have no signal at all, you've got some features being built in for satellite communication. Improved Braille support for accessibility.
How does that work?
It's the vibrations apparently of the keys, because I was looking at that too. And that is super awesome that they figured that out. Yeah. Circle search, which is absolutely, I have a Pixel 8 Pro, the most annoying feature on the planet, because it constantly, when I'm trying to zoom in a picture, it thinks I'm circling it, and then it opens up this app and is like doing this AI thing against the picture. I'm like, I just want to zoom, go away. The feature's cool. Like I could circle something and it searches it, but it just executes too fast.
Weird.
So on my Pixel 6, I don't have that feature. I think I just haven't updated it to, is it like 14? I don't think I've updated it to 14.
Yeah, I haven't updated it either.
And I'm now knowing I don't want to.
Yeah. App pairing for split screen support. So you can basically set it up so that every time you open that app, it will open a pair of apps instead of just the one app. Especially if you have a fold and things, that could be really useful. Yeah. And then one of my favorites ones is lockdown mode improvements to reduce risk of juice jacking. And that is not a gym reference. Juice jacking is when, because these people get juiced, and
they get jacked. Okay, I get it. I get where you're going with that. Okay.
So when you plug your device, we've talked about this on the show.
I think juice is more of like a steroid or something. Isn't that what that is?
Probably, but isn't that just Prime nowadays? And everybody just drink Prime and then go work out.
Prime as in the Logan Paul drink.
Logan Paul drink, yeah. Like, juice.
Why would that? I mean, that's not even juice.
To go to the gym, because everyone drinks. All the young kids drink Prime. Man, are you not down with the young kids?
I mean, actually, you know what's funny about that is
You're
that
so Ohio
Prime,
dog water.
So I have tried. Stop it. I have tried Prime, and I tried one that was like, you remember like when you were a kid, there was this, the old times of having an ice cream truck that drives by the neighborhood and you get,
they're still around every now and then.
Yeah. Very rare, but still it happens. Yeah. But I remember distinctively, there was one that was one of my favorites, and it was the Rocket Pop. And it was like the red, white, and blue, like rocket looking thing. It was it was really fun, really tasty. There's a Rocket Pop of Prime, and I thought, oh, that seems fun. So I tried it. It is disgusting. It is the worst thing ever.
By the way, we are
worst.
I should have told you this before, Michael. We just got sponsored by Prime. We
Speaking
love
of
Prime Rocket Pop.
Prime
Drink
Orange version is quite delish. Actually, some of the stuff is not bad. Like the lemon one is fine. But what's funny about it is
We
that
did not get sponsored by Prime.
we did not get sponsored by Prime. No, I mean, Logan, let us know if you want to sponsor.
I'm sure
But not the Rocket Pop. I refuse to say that that's good. That is disgusting. But
the right amount, would you though? For the right amount, for
I'll say,
$100,000.
hey, if you want to buy this, it'll help the show. But it is disgusting. I'll say that because it is a horrific drink. Like it's not even.
If you want to buy this, it helps the show, but it's disgusting. And then take a drink and spit it all over the wall.
I'll be like,
it is as a frozen popsicle.
So no, a frozen a popsicle. The Rocket Pop was good. This is not, but it's also colored in the same way that it's supposed to be, the Rocket Pop or whatever, and it is not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that Prime is interesting because they're a fantastic example that terrible products with good marketing are still successful, because that exactly their branding, the bottle design, like all that stuff is very good. If you try it, it is nothing special. You can compare it to basically any of those kinds of drinks.
My son would disagree. He is stuck on the Prime train, and South Park's made episodes about all the kids wanting Prime, so they have marketed well. But somehow we've gone on a 4-minute tangent when we're talking about juice jacking, which is when you plug your USB device into a charger in an airport or somewhere else, and that charger is not actually just a charger. It's taking data off your phone. It can pull photos off your phone, data on your phone, which is why we say bring your own portable battery instead of plugging into those. Mm-hmm. Well, they made a lockdown mode in Android that you can set your phone to, so that any device you plug in the USB, the only thing it can do is charge your device, which I think is a really cool feature there.
That's good.
Also, Google Play Protect can now detect when malicious apps might want to misuse device permissions, which is definitely an improvement. And then edge-to-edge apps by default using your entire screen real estate, which I like. I like seeing some of their focus on security, some more of their integration there with some of the things they're doing. I wish, they had one place to control all of Google's products, opt-in and opt-out features, because Google does actually give you quite a bit of control. It's just they have that control in every single app, and they're all separate, and none of them are integrated, and you'd have to go into every version of everything that Google releases to go set those privacy settings, which makes them completely obnoxious. And I know they do that on purpose, and it sucks, and I don't like it. So let's talk about something iPhone did with their new version, though, because this show's fresh and exciting. We're hot off the press with this stuff.
Hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Now, Apple decides they're going to integrate. I mean, the big thing, more screen, better screen resolution,
better camera,
new color, all the same crap, right?
Yeah.
But they put an AI chip in it, and you're like, yeah, so did Samsung, so is everybody else, so is Google Pixel. I mean, it uses a tensor processor, for God's sakes. But they decided to make their AI integration local to your phone for privacy. So you can use their AI and you can ask it all these questions, which is ChatGPT based, and it doesn't go up and sync to the cloud. You can send it to the cloud, but you have to purposefully go do that and send that particular question or something if you want to. But you can also just run everything right there on your phone, which is another reason why suits are so stupid, because they do not understand, Apple does, they do not understand these other companies, how important privacy is to the consumer. They are correct in the fact that given the choice, people will always go for convenience first. But if there's something that's really convenient and private, they're going to choose that. And that's why Apple spends millions and millions of dollars advertising how much more private they are than Android. And that's why they're winning. That's why they've taken over 50% of the market in the US. And doing things like this just makes them that much better of a choice. It stinks, because I would love to say the Linux-based, because it's got Google crap all over it, operating system is the biggest, baddest thing out there.
And it's
but
not.
Google's not doing us any favors.
Yeah, and they're so proud of themselves, they named it Apple Intelligence instead of artificial intelligence.
Of course they did. I'm surprised it wasn't iIntelligence.
Yeah.
Like KDE
should have been with everything. No, they should have just called it Apple. Like it's still Apple Intelligence, whatever. But they spell it, they say AI, right? Because it's Apple, but they spell it lowercase I, capital N, intelligence. So they have the lowercase.
I'll write it down later.
Because they always have the lowercase I of everything with the iPhone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah.
That's
iMac.
right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. If you see it written, it's a better joke. But it's funny that you mentioned this because because it is true that when they announced AI and also the AI integration in Apple Intelligence is through ChatGPT, which also made me think, no, thank you, right? Because we like literally on the ChatGPT website, it says, do not put anything in here that is private. Like that. I mean, what are you doing, Apple? That seems like a weird, broken, sketchy thing that you're doing. But having it local on the phone sounds exactly what Apple is doing. And you're talking about how when people choose convenience and privacy, I love the idea of using a Linux-based phone. I have had Android for years and years and years. And I just, like, when I found out all the levels of privacy that Apple has, it's an easy choice. The choice between I get the convenience and the privacy. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care enough about Android to want to force myself to deal with all of its nonsense when I don't have to. And if you know about privacy, Android's system is not the best by far.
Well, let's put that to the test here real quick, Michael. Hey Google. Hey Google. What is cognizant?
What is a question that asks for information or clarification about something. It's a common phrase used to seek knowledge.
What?
All right. So my son wanted to define cognizant, right? And I was like, oh, ask Google. And it kept coming up over and over and over again saying defining knockout. And today, instead of even answering, even though it wrote knockout, KO, for cognizant, no matter how many times I say it, now it's saying it's just taking the first part of what is and answering. This is how stupid these phones are. Like, it's so stupid. It's so bad. And it's stealing all of my data to do that kind of stupidity. And that is pathetic. But you know what?
I feel like I have to test it.
Is not cognizant. It is not intelligently aware.
I feel like I have to test this now.
Okay.
Hey Siri, what is cognizant?
Here's what I found.
Well, okay, that wasn't that great. It actually just gave me a Google search for cognizant, but still, that's better than nothing.
But that's better. It's literally
at
better.
least accurate to what I heard. It heard me correctly. It just didn't tell me what it was. It just gave me a link to it. Like, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me again, people, how this is taking over the world and all of our jobs are gone and they've already laid off people for this crap. How stupid suits are. Anyways, Jill, listen, we talked about last week that we thought you might be AI. So Jill, let's test that. Give me a fact about cats.
Oh, did you know, Ryan, that cats always land on their feet?
She is AI.
99% of the time. And toast that you cook in a toaster always lands butter side down.
I didn't ask about I didn't ask about the toast. See, she's hallucinating, Michael. Jill hallucinating.
More proof that she's AI.
Yes. So these are just the facts of life. So what happens if you butter a cat? Well, the cat becomes very dirty.
It's true.
That would be true. You don't want butter,
Jill.
That cat would be really annoyed by you. Yeah.
Yeah, and very greasy. So, well, our game this week takes you into this meme paradox, and it's called CATO, Buttered Cat. And it's a great name for a game, and it is described on Steam like this. The game resolves around the two main characters, Cat and Buttered Toast. You'll need to use the interactions between them to solve various puzzles at each game level. The full game
is toast.
Yes. And it's awesome. The full game is featuring over 140 main levels and more than 60 side levels. There are also hidden rooms, challenging boss battles, and fun mini games. And the full version will include an outfit system with 30 plus cat and toast skins waiting for you to collect. So, CATO Buttered Cat is a fun and adorable puzzle platformer and already has 390 very positive, as in cat paws, reviews.
Positive. That's so cute. Did you write that or did that?
Yes, I did.
Oh my gosh, that's so.
I love how
adorable,
I
Jill.
love how none like I most of the dad jokes are not made by me this episode. I love it.
Your legacy will live on, Michael.
Exactly.
And CATO also has great puzzle mechanics that are both challenging and creative. And it is actually done in a very pixel kawaii art style, and you can make your cute kitty meow whenever you want.
Oh.
What can the
if
toast do?
So it's neat. So when you start the game, you have to learn how to navigate the cat through all the obstacles, and then you got to learn how to navigate the toast through all the obstacles, and then they come together at one point, and then you have to navigate the puzzles with them together.
That's
Oh my goodness.
That's really cute. It's really
Yeah,
cute.
it is. So if you're looking for a little happiness in your life, check out this charming game, CATO Buttered Cat. It also has a free demo available, and it only costs $9.89 for the full game on Steam. And
So
have fun. So
it just reminds me of there's this Rick and Morty episode where Rick's the most intelligent person in the world, is the cartoon meme kind of idea. And he
yeah.
decides he's going to build an AI robot. So he goes and you see him going off in the garage and creating the most sophisticated mini robot he can. And he puts it onto the table where he has toast in front of him. And the robot comes alive and says, "What is my purpose?" And he goes, "You pass butter." And the robot goes, "Oh my God," and goes and gets the butter. Like, it just reminded me of we were talking about AI and buttered toast, of that scene.
Oh, that's brilliant. I know there have been several episodes where he goes and builds robots, but I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. One of my favorites. All right, so I've got to tell people about something. Michael's witness to this. So, Michael, I need you to jump in here. Do not be afraid. We'll make sure the company's lawyers protect you and things. But Jill hacked me earlier in this show. Did she not?
Okay.
For real. I'm not even joking.
So Ryan is talking about our software spotlight, which is Jill hacking Ryan. And this totally did happen. I was shocked. All of a sudden, Jill was moving files on Ryan's computer, like having complete control.
We're not even joking.
If you ever used the software Team Viewer back in the day, it's kind of like that. She took over his computer and controlled it with software that he put on his computer and gave her a password with.
Yes.
It's a leak.
That's such hacking right there.
Aw. So there's actually a really nice open source professional alternative to TeamViewer. And, its features are coming along quite nicely. It's called RustDesk. Yes, of course, created in Rust code.
Love it.
I was about to ask that. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So this remote desktop app works on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, Android, and the web. And it supports VP8, VP9, AV1 software codecs, and H.264 and H.265 hardware codecs. It also offers a self-hosting solution on your infrastructure. And it has a peer-to-peer connection with end-to-end encryption based on NaCl or the Networking and Cryptography Library. And
NaCl.
no administrative privileges or installation needed for Windows. And you can elevate privilege locally or from remote on demand. And it's free to use, but you can also utilize their paid tier for additional professional services and hosting they offer. And it's available as a .deb, .rpm, .tar.gz, or as a Flatpak or app image for Linux.
That is
And
awesome.
So
it
me and
worked
Jill, we're
great.
testing it. Yeah, we're testing it. Like we're in two completely different states, California and Texas, and
Yeah.
Jill remoted in, was able to launch videos, secret videos of videos I haven't
Yes.
launched on my channel yet. And she went right for that. Like she knew
Yeah.
where they were as if she had hacked me before.
Hey,
It's not
Jill,
like those videos were just
were they
sitting
on
right
his
there.
desktop?
Like she
Yeah.
navigated to
Were
it.
they on his desktop, Jill?
No.
Yep. No, they weren't on the desktop. I did have to go into his file manager, of course.
And go into documents and then go into a
Documents
folder
and folder.
and then click on a
Yeah.
video. Like she
Yes.
didn't hesitate though.
No,
Because this
I
all
knew
happened
where-
in seconds. She knew exactly where to go.
She knew exactly where to go.
She's
But,
been on this machine before. She was too familiar. It's like if you invite somebody over for the first time and you're like, they just instantly go and know where the fork is. You're like, you've been in my home. You know, they know where the fork drawer is, or they know where to get the spoons.
That's
the
how
glasses.
that's how you know. That's the
That's
only
how
way
you
you
know.
know.
That's how I tested if Jill's ever hacked me before. And the answer is yes.
And it was actually kind of easy because Ryan uses defaults.
That's true. It's in videos in one folder with the Batman wallpaper.
It was just in the videos folder.
Yeah.
But,
so I also, while I was doing that, I had to use my Magnus screen magnifier, and it worked nicely with it.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That's very cool to know.
Piece in there too.
Also, this is really cool idea of software because I mean we've seen these over the years many times. There's been many different remote desktops, but every time I've used all the alternatives to TeamViewer, I always went back to TeamViewer because it was just so much easier to use TeamViewer than all the other ones. And this one feels very similar to TeamViewer. It has the same kind of vibe. It's the same process of putting the password in. So I feel like there is a lot of potential here for this particular app. And if you are in the need for a remote desktop thing, this is one to check out. Also, I really like the fact that at the very top of their website where you go to download the file, it says you might be being scammed, just really big in this big warning, because these kinds of software are used a lot by scammers.
It's really awesome for them to give that warning. Really, really awesome. By the way, RustDesk should be a sponsor of this show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like
should.
By the way, I'm not just saying this, like their product is so good, like with it and it's so simple to use that once we installed the applications on our computers, like Jill was in seconds.
Yeah,
like
it's so
and it was password protected, but also it gave me another prompt even after Jill got the password that I gave her to get into my machine and said, hey, are you sure you want to let her in? And what things do you want her to be able to do? Control your mouse. And so it gave me selection boxes. Like a lot of
that's even better.
Really great features are there that allow me to have control. And of course, I could disconnect her at any time I wanted. So very powerful tool. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. It reminded me a lot of Log Me In. That became, very, very popular very quickly because before Log Me In, the one that we used to use all the time was VNC, and VNC is wonderful, but it's much more difficult to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like Log Me In before Log Me In decided to ruin their product and be awful.
Yes. Yeah.
And everybody started hating them. Everybody abandoned it. So yeah. I forgot about Log Me In. So thank you for re-traumatizing me, Jill.
Yes. Well, RustDesk, it ran really fast, and the Deb ran very well on Wayland, on my Ubuntu 24.04 here in the studio.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, real quick, Jill, they have a flat pack for it, but it's not in the Flat Hub, so you have to go to their download section to get the flat pack. That's a weird thing to do.
That. Fix it.
Yeah, you should probably put it in the Flat Hub because I'm just curious why it's not in the Flat Hub. Maybe they submitted it and it's not been approved yet.
Maybe
if they know if they know what a flat pack is enough to build a flat pack, they 100% know what a Flat Hub is.
Maybe they don't. Michael, maybe they don't. Okay.
Okay. Maybe. I'm just curious. If you know, let us know.
All right, Jill, take us into the tip of the week.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorites. Our tip of the week this week is to go check out www.explainshell.com. If you've ever given a command to put into the terminal and want to understand what each part of that command does, then Explain Shell is a fantastic resource. Simply cut and paste the command or type it in to the search, and Explain Shell breaks it down into various parts, explaining what each piece does. And it does it like an old style, graph, old style flow chart that we used to use in computing. So that makes me happy. So,
and it's also really easy to follow because it gives you it shows you this piece and the line goes to what it's explaining, and then the next piece goes to the line and what it's explaining. And it's color coded, and it's really nice because it does explains each individual piece quickly and clearly, and it's not like this huge giant manual you have to go through. It just does it in like a very simple way of just explaining it. But also, I'm really it's funny, but also useful that the number one example on the website when you're checking out how it works and other stuff is a fork bomb.
Oh yes,
so,
yes.
I was
that,
that's pretty interesting because people might like want to know what that is before they run it.
Yeah. So, it's Explain Shell is not only a great tool to make sure you understand what you're running, but also is an awesome resource to expand your understanding of the shell and how commands work. I did a test. I just did sudo apt get install and a name of a piece of software, and it breaks it down and tells you what each part of that command is doing.
It's great. Like people who go out on websites and they copy certain commands because they're told this is the fix for whatever you're doing. Before you run that command, run it through explainshell.com, get that in your favorites, and then you can break it down. Not only are you learning through the process of how each command works and how they work together and the different switches, but you're also making sure you're not running something that's malicious on there as well. It's just a really cool tool. Favorite that, explainshell.com. It's really awesome. By the way, we're going to switch up our intro because we are way over time and Michael has to edit this week. So what we're going to do is tell you this. Thank you, each and every one of you, for listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. Become a patron. Help support this show. Send in your feedback to us. Go to our store and get some merchandise. Check out all the great shows that we have on our network. And Jill, give us our closing.
Have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
See you, everyone.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Also appreciate the fact that you're making it easy for me to edit. That's so nice of you. And real quick,
I didn't at first, but I'm doing it now. So
yeah, he caused some issues earlier in the show. So
I don't know. I had to make up for it.
I appreciate that. Tuxdigital.com/membership and tuxdigital.com/store. If you didn't know where to go, now you do. See you next week.
See ya.